Everybody knows that something is wrong with me. I will never find anyone who will love me. You avoid things that can make you excited because they can also make you scared. Oftentimes, when we see people who overcompensate their schemas, they actually look like superheroes. In the previous video, I talked about schemas and how they secretly run your life. And in this video, I will talk about something else because schemas, they trigger you, they awake a lot of memories and emotions and all of that, but they don't necessarily ruin your life. What is more responsible for ruining your life is how you cope with them. I'm Aleksandra Novak, psychotherapist, traveler, expat, and a bit sport obsessive. And this channel is to educate you about schemas and about patterns that run your life and the tools that could help you to cope with them. So, how do we deal with schemas? There are basically three ways. One of which is surrendering, the other one is overcompensating, and the third one is avoiding. And surrendering is something we do when we believe the schema. So we start thinking about ourselves that we are a failure and that nobody will ever choose us and we will never be happy as other people. It can also manifest in a way that we act in a very passive way and we try to accommodate everyone else. Another way of coping is avoidance. So, not choosing the job we could do and succeed in, doing things below our potential. When a person surrenders to schema, they may say, "Oh, you're always so much smarter than me," or they could say, "Always have such a high standards," and they can compare themselves. Sometimes it can be subconscious, like with overcompensation. Surrendering to schema is something like our belief about ourselves. I will never find anyone who will love me. Or, yeah, everybody knows that something is wrong with me, which is defectiveness schema. Everybody knows that I'm a failure. I go to the room, they all look at me, and that's exactly what they're thinking. And that would be coping with the schemas by surrendering. And the second way of coping with schemas is avoiding. Avoiding situations that could trigger your schema. You do not choose a job that would fulfill your potential out of fear of failure. Avoiding is this way of coping when you go numb emotionally. You avoid things that can make you excited because they can also make you scared. So you start having a very flat life. There's not a lot of fear, but there's also not a lot of excitement. So the third one is overcompensation. And this one is quite interesting because people like that can be leaders. We want to follow them. It seems to us and it feels that they're very strong. Overcompensation can also manifest in being very angry and strong in that way that is repulsive, lashing out and showing to everyone, look, who is the biggest and the strongest here, and setting boundaries in an overly exaggerated way. Let's say we have a schema of defectiveness, but we overcompensate and we act like nothing could ever hurt us. This can create issues in relationships. Oftentimes, when we see people who overcompensate their schemas, they actually look like superheroes, the healthiest adults ever. But at the end of the day, there can be some schema underneath it. And the third way of coping with schema is surrendering. So those are three ways. Then I want to introduce the concept of parts. We have a lot of different parts. We have the vulnerable part that we don't want to show to anyone, and the inner critic part who is always telling us, be better, faster, emotions are bad, never show sadness, which is so stupid and silly. Those are the things that inner critic says to us. Nobody likes you. We truly believe it 100%. We have also positive parts, like my favorite one, happy child, which is just being playful, joking. For some people, it could be reading a book or taking a hot bath, or for some other people, it could be going for a party and dancing all night and learning salsa, having dinner with friends. The moment when we feel careless and relaxed and we don't really try to be anything, this is when we are in the happy child part. And if another part that gets activated is the part that always tries to please everyone. And of course, people pleaser, everybody knows what it means. For example, someone is asking, do you want another piece of cake? And we notice that someone else also wants it. And we also really want it, but we couldn't stand the guilt of taking something from someone else. So we never put ourselves first. On some level, it's super wholesome and it's beautiful we have people like that. But that's the thing about schemas and parts, the rigidity. If it's every single time and you never put yourself first, then it's not wholesome anymore. It's a coping not to feel bad. So schema and parts and modes and everything in psychotherapy likes balance, likes flexibility. Compensator can manifest in a lot of different ways. It can be being overly controlling of your life and the lives of others, trying never any mistake and being always prepared, perceiving a lot of different forms of communication as disrespectful and lashing out, showing to everyone, look, who is the biggest and the strongest here, and setting the boundaries in an overly exaggerated way. It can look like healthy adult is in control. And people often turn to people who overcompensate. They may feel safe with them or they may see them as leaders. And when we overcompensate, we may try to be the best if we have unrelenting standard schema, or we may try to control everything if deep down we feel we don't have any control at all. Vulnerable child is the moments when we feel sad or anxious or helpless. We miss someone very deeply, manifest as emotions, chest pain, thoughts racing, feeling that nothing that this is a catastrophe, whatever is happening to us. When you are in this helpless, vulnerable state, that's a sign your inner child is taking over. We carry with ourselves a part of the brain that we carried when we were 5 or 10 years old. So sometimes we are able to feel like those helpless children because the same neural pathways are there intact. Every therapist wants to be in the sweet spot when vulnerable child appears because this part is the most healing. If this part is not showed for a very long time, it almost feels like we're not really seen for who we are. So we need to be in contact with this part from time to time. Rejecting it completely is rejecting ourselves. So this is where the idea of parts come from. It comes from the fact that we can feel like a child, and as an adult, the switch can be seconds. The other part that I would like to mention is healthy adult. And this part is usually the one that is controlling our life on the daily basis, the one that is paying taxes, remembering about birthday of friends, going to work, setting boundaries, and being empathetic to our loved ones, taking care of ourselves, like having enough of sleep, making sure we meet with the close people regularly. We have vulnerable child, we have healthy adult, and we also have inner critic. Inner critic usually says things like, nobody likes you, nobody wants you here. They all know how stupid you are, nothing ever will be better. So those are very depressive and disarming thoughts that comes with inner critic. And sometimes you're super aware of it, and some other times we don't, and they just manifest as a pain in our body. So we can have a part that will try to protect the vulnerable child from inner critic by being perfectionistic and study all night. So the critic will not say, you're not good enough. Are pathetic, they will never like you. And the third way we cope with inner critic is by surrendering to what it says. So, for example, if our parent may not believe in us and say things like, you will never achieve anything, then just out of this loyalty to the parent and to those lessons they gives us, we may believe it in ourselves. When inner critic starts overtly criticizing us for something super small or irrelevant, for example, that our child is crying in the middle of the store and we suddenly feel super guilty about it, we may remember that this is only our part and not the whole of us. This is the inner critic. Remember, this is just a part of us that got activated and we can pacify it. We pacify the coping modes, the inner critic, and give more space for happy child and vulnerable child and healthy adult. This is exactly how we create more distance between our past and how we would like to be ourselves here and now. So when we notice the specific part and we name it and we observe it in our body, we can more easily distance ourselves from it and stop it from taking over our life.